end of the day, I think this is the part of negotiation that, President Trump and also the Prime Minister Trudeau is trying to negotiate. Hopefully, it's not going to happen, but we know that he's already going to implement 25% tariff on that, and this is going to cause a lot of interesting things happening in commercial real estate, because what I'm seeing right now in the market, a lot of the large companies that were supposed to set up headquarters in Canada, specific Toronto and Vancouver, they're actually backing out on some of the new construction that they have already leased the space. So it's going to be an interesting thing that's going to be happening. Thank you, Jim.
Next, I would like to ask Evan Bennett. Evan was past president of FIAPSI, but Evan, if you don't mind sharing, but I think what your new role too, as one of the global developers advising around the world, if you don't mind sharing your background and a little bit about FIAPSI.
Sure, glad to do it. Thank you, Jim. So my name's Evan Bennett. Professionally, I'm an independent sponsor. I'm the managing partner of Anthology Capital. I'm based here in the Pacific Northwest, mainly in Seattle. I also look at investment properties in Portland. I've looked at properties in San Francisco. I haven't yet actually acquired any there. Basically, what I do is I syndicate these investments for a small group of investors that I've collected over the years. I've been in commercial real estate and the banking industries for 20 years. Started as a commercial real estate appraiser at CBRE, Kidder Matthews. Then I became a loan originator, commercial real estate loan originator at Chase, and just transitioned into this role as, again, just an independent sponsor. But the organization that Jim mentioned, FIAPSI, the one I'm here representing today, is a global networking organization. It's FIAPSI, the International Real Estate Federation. It's been in operation, for more than 70 years, actually. It started out as sort of a federation of real estate professional associations across all professions. So it wasn't specific to brokers. It was any and all professions underneath the real estate umbrella. So think architects, developers, bankers, investors, appraisers, surveyors, anyone who's doing business that touches real estate transactions in one way or the other. But it started out as a very altruistic endeavor in the aftermath of World War II. It started in France, but it was very European at the very beginning. All of these European real estate associations came together and said, how can we take our skill set, our knowledge, apply it to helping to, as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, rebuild Europe in the aftermath of World War II. Now, again, that was 70 years ago. So the organization has evolved quite a bit. For the most part, when people join nowadays, it's for business development purposes. They have some interest in global real estate businesses of one sort or the other. But we do still have that, that undercurrent of, sort of civic engagement on a global scale. So FIAPSI actually has consultative status with the United Nations, and we work quite regularly with UN Habitat on a variety of different issues and projects, things like that. Most of them having to do with sustainable development goals. We have events, international events, a few times a year. The next big one is coming up in June. We're going to have our World Real Estate Congress in Lagos, Nigeria. So really looking forward to that. It's going to be my first time to travel to Africa, to the African continent. Locally, Jim mentioned this. I'm currently the chapter president of FIAPSI USA. So FIAPSI has 45 national and multinational chapters around the world. Obviously, FIAPSI USA being one of them. We have events as well. We're going to have one actually in May, so in just a few months. Our spring symposium is going to be held in Atlanta, Georgia. A couple of days of property tours, educational, informative programming. We're going to have our annual Grand Prix of Real Estate Awards ceremony, and we're going to induct all of our incoming officers, including the new chapter president. So yeah, it's been a very satisfying experience, but I was telling Jim the other day that I am actually looking forward to being able to step back and get some of my time back that I can start using for other projects. But having said all that, just to follow up on what Ellen said about tariffs, some of the investors that I work with, and there are a few of them, are global. I mean, they're not Americans. They're from, other countries around the world. Just in conversations with them, it does seem that there is concern on this topic and, what's happening in the United States politically and the relationship the United States has with the rest of the world. So it'd be interesting to see how that develops over the coming months. But specifically to the tariffs, just next week, on Friday of next week, FIAPSI USA is going to have a webinar where we've invited the presidents of the Canadian chapter and the Mexican chapter of FIAPSI to talk on this very topic. How do they feel about what's happening? How is it impacting the real estate markets in their countries, impacting their businesses, things of that nature. So just in closing, I'll tell you, in regards to all of that, I'll copy some information into the chat box. If you're interested in attending that webinar or just learning more information about FIAPSI, by all means, please feel free to reach out. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate that.
And Doug, please put your information in, since I recognize a lot of people here that are, global. Luis, is in Mexico, so you can talk. I know Eric and them, they're in Atlanta, so they should be getting the troops and everyone over there to show up. And as we wait, as you were talking about Africa, one of our speakers was delayed because he was speaking to South Africa on a webinar discussing. So we'd love to see what he was talking about when he jumps in. One of the things that we're talking about, let's say with US, as the elections now are over and we know which president is elected and kind of the policies that are going to be put in place, a lot of it is impacted, as we all are talking about, tariffs with the US and some type of the global movement of money. But Ellen, I'd love to talk to you about what have you seen, with the changes talking about tariff affecting Canada specifically?
Well, I think one of the things we've noticed is price have gone up. And second thing is really the exchange rate. Looking at the exchange rate right now, the US dollar is really strong. And what we're seeing right now is that a lot of people are worried about the economy. And that's the reason why we're seeing people are dropping interest, like the government is dropping interest rate, but they're also concerned about inflation that's happening. So we're actually we're hoping that it won't cause a recession, but I mean, at the end of the day, we're hoping the market will slowly bounce back. But one key thing we've been noticing is that because the Canadian dollar has gone down, we're actually noticing a lot of people from the other countries are looking in to purchase, Class A trophy properties, which might not be available. And not only that, I've also talked with various different government. They're actually looking to purchase some distressed property too, to put into their portfolio. So that's the reason why it's actually an opportunity. I see it as an opportunity rather than for people who have the cash and also have the opportunity to start grasping on some of these properties. Yeah.
Thank you, Ellen. I see Doug Bruhnke. He was off his South Africa trip. So we were talking, Doug, if you don't mind, there we go, discussing the global, especially the impact with the elections, tariffs. But you were on a call with South Africa. Can you bring us now to the African continent and share a little bit about what you were talking about in South Africa? And what do you see, Doug, as, Global Chamber, Love Global Chamber has grown into 100 different members, 425 chapters around metros around the world. But what was your discussions, let's say the African continent, South Africa, and then we can kind of share a little bit about what Global Chamber is about.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you, Jim. You're amazing. I just am so inspired by your globalness and your activity and your support of other people. It's just unparalleled. So thank you for what you do. The last 3 hours, actually, as I've looked at my calendar, it's back to back of activity. So we actually started 3 hours ago in India, and we had our monthly Global Chamber India cross metro meetup, and we had mainly one speaker from Pune, but we had probably at least 10 of our chapters represented where we shared opportunities. And I would say that's how not only that meeting went, but generally with Global Chamber, we're everywhere. We work with everybody that's got a mentality around growth and respect and professionalism and honesty. And we are very much oriented toward success and focused in on success. It's not just real estate. And in fact, there's a fraction of our members are in the real estate area, but certainly lots of investors, people who are exporting products and services, people who are just growing their business across regions, even within countries. Subsequently, I did have a conversation with Belgium, it looks like, and Calgary, and then Andrew was from Scotland, from Edinburgh, and then this last conversation was with South Africa, and it's a group of women who it's called the Global Business Women's Chamber of Commerce. That's a brand new chamber that's forming in Durban, South Africa. I somehow got involved with this lady. She'd been running a Muslim chamber of commerce nearby Durban that she was a vice president for a number of years. And now she's leaving that and creating this other chamber that's mainly across South Africa. And we've had a little bit of a challenge, even though Global Chamber is in all 54 countries of Africa, it's not uniformly fully built out. In South Africa, we've mainly been in Johannesburg and in Cape Town and in one town in the southern Cape where we have a really dynamic, amazing woman from Italy, but now based there. So this chamber had represented some opportunity for us to continue to expand. And the good news was she brought 7 or 8 of her team onto the call. And I think we ended up agreeing that we are going to collaborate and we're going to work together and we're going to have some sort of an MOU where they're going to help us in South Africa and vice versa, for us helping them, not just there, but across Africa. I don't know how all of you feel about Africa, but I'm someone who in the next 10 or 20 years believes that that's where a lot of the world's business action is going to be. I'm someone who's been involved with international business for 38 years. And in fact, January was the 38th anniversary of a young chemical engineer from the DuPont company being transferred to become the technical support person for the Teflon and fluoropolymers business for DuPont to visit Korea. And I arrived on a Saturday, or I arrived on a Saturday night to be able to tour Sunday morning. So I arrived at night into Seoul, went to the Lotte Hotel, where, Jim, I'm sure you've stayed. And I woke up in the morning and I was so blown away, not only because it was so cold and it had snowed the night before, but the markets and the activity were just so amazing. And so fast forward 38 years, now that we have Global Chamber, we have the ability to connect people into markets, whether it's the Namdae market in Seoul or Seoul more holistically, or last night I was watching a program streaming on Netflix. It's a 8-episode program about food and tracing people's heritage back to food. And that lady Aquafina, who does Nora in Queens, I'm from New York, so Queens, New York is kind of one of my hometowns, they had her going back to her roots in Korea. I've spent a lot of time, not just in Seoul, but in Daegu, where it turns out her mother, who died prematurely, is from. And so to see that activity and to see our 5 chapters, in Korea and the growth that we're doing. And I know, Jim, Dr. Wonsak Yun and the activities that he's doing, not just with Global Chamber, but as commissioner of the Incheon Free Enterprise Zone. The connections we all make internationally are so positive and so valuable. The question then becomes, what do we do with them? How do we take action that's practical and efficient to be able to grow in different places in the world? That's why I admire Jim so much in terms of his connectivity and how he helps people. And I'm just trying to do my part by creating a network, the Global Chamber, that facilitates people to do the same thing.
Thank you, Doug. And if you can put your information, I think a lot of people here would love to plug in. And it is plugging in, like where I met with Ellen, with CCIM, with international education training, that global network, also with FIOPSI, with Evan, and I met through FIOPSI with Doug because we were speaking on a panel together. But this is how you get involved. And I want to share with everyone how you plug in. Many people that are watching us right now are part of one of these organizations, whether it's CCIM, Renaissance, Global Chamber with Luis, and FIOPSI. It is really important if you're looking at international, and it's not always real estate, but it's these connections, because I know, Doug, with Global Chambers, there was a lot of political people that I met in Global Chambers. Many are politicians or companies and businesses, but I'd like to now open this to everyone part of this group, since we do have this global group. And I see, Luis from Mexico. Let's hear from you because you're actually in Mexico. I know Cesar, we were talking about with Chewy about what we're going to do in Mexico to expand. But Luis, let's open this up. What are you seeing and sharing about Mexico right now because of tariffs to share with everyone on this group?
Hey, hello everyone. Thank you very much, James. Hello, Doc. Helen, everybody, thank you for the invitation to join. Well, the truth is, it's very confused. All the decision makers right now in Mexico are like waiting. As you know, today, actually, the Marcelo Ebrard, who is the Secretary of Economic, and he's today in Washington, D.C. So they are trying to see what is going really to happen, because sometimes, as we have seen before with Donald Trump, he says something and that makes a lot of noise, even with other countries. And we know that that could happen, but that also could not happen. So there is uncertainty because, of course, especially in automotive, as you know, there is not a 100% manufacturing plants in the US. If you see Ford, many components are made in Mexico and many components are made in Canada. So the truth is, when you see that supply chains and how these products are made, that it's because of the free trade agreement, actually it really will affect everything that is in steel and aluminum, and especially in auto parts and also in food. It's very uncertain what is going to really happen. We don't think that they are going to make it as 100% as Trump is saying. I think he's trying to negotiate other things and then trying to be very tough, negotiating the other things that he could really have reason maybe in those things, but he is using the tools of tariffs for getting other things. That's what we are reading, and we hope we can still, well, we see many companies. Actually, yesterday I was with a company from Michigan, and they are not stopping a second phase because they made the first phase last year, and they say, we are not going to stop it. We are going ahead. So they are going ahead for a second phase of their production capacity. So they are going to start very soon 315,000 square feet facility here in Guadalajara. So the answer is we want to wait to try to read a little bit more what is really going to happen, because of everything that has been said, we don't think that the 100% is going to really be true. I don't know how you see it.
Thank you, Luis, for sharing that. Ellen, I know you have to jump off, but what is your final thoughts and words before you have to leave for another probably global call that you're on?
Well, I think I agree with Luis on that. I think right now it's all about negotiation, because he's trying to change also all the things that's within the NAFTA agreement or the new agreement, the trade agreement. So I think right now we'll go through, I guess, a time of uncertainty. And for those people that have started the project, of course, they are committed to it. But for the people that still have a chance to think about backing out, I do think that people are really considering how that's going to work. But one good thing is I do notice a lot of people are looking into setting up shops. A lot of Canadians are actually looking into investing or setting up purchasing industrial properties or leasing industrial properties, because they do see that in the US, that's probably going to be where the market is. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. I think a lot of uncertainty. We just have to wait and see where all the leaders are heading and how the negotiation goes. But other than that, I really appreciate Jim for this opportunity, and really nice to have Evan and Doug here, and looking forward to meeting all of you. So I just put my contact information and also the sign up for the Renaissance Global events. So feel free to sign up for the calendar. And really, we're trying to create a global group where everybody, all the experts, can make deals together. Thank you so much. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Ellen. You know, and just talking about this, because we're all knowing there is opportunities, and just talking to some developers in the US, because of supply chain, it delayed their building. Even though some of the materials here, they didn't know what impacts on other materials that they were building in the US, because it did come from abroad. They didn't know about their pricing. Some people actually held off on their development or slowed it down to get some more certainty, mostly because of the material goods. And I hate to say this too, sometimes my friends that are contractors, they don't have workers, because a lot of things that they had, you know, were some other people, immigrants and others that were doing the job and didn't want to go onto the site. So there is some effects on the housing development side. But Matt, I'd love to share with you, because you just got off the phone with China. What's going on with China? Tell us with China, the impact, the feel, the thoughts, because that's the second big market that everyone wants to work with. And I was talking to many people internationally, Caesar, I was talking to Chewy, because around the world, besides the US, China discussing and having this go at with each other, the rest of the world still wants to work, you know, with everybody else, because it is a lot of business. But if you don't mind, Matt, sharing us with your discussion, e-media, what you're doing, you know, your global business and your discussion with China.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just got off a call with a partner in Beijing. And so I work with a company called KE Holdings, which is the biggest real estate platform and real estate company in China. We have our own company, eMedia Links, which has behind the firewall. Our website now opens there. We're excited. We team up with some big social media partners in China as well. Setting up another one with a couple others soon. So a lot of audience. We have millions of views per month, and well, that'll increase. So a lot of folks in China, though, they really want to invest outside of China. That's for sure. And so whether it be in the US, whether it be commercial real estate, residential real estate, business opportunity. Jim, as you know, we have partners in North Carolina. It's super popular now with inbound for commercial real estate. I mean, really all over North America, and actually globally. I mean, Dubai is very popular with Chinese now. The typical places obviously still are. So definitely there's a high interest to invest, those who can, outside of China. Before, I know education really drove a lot of that to the US anyway, but COVID stopped that. But now I just think it's the economy there and just kind of world events. People just want to protect some wealth and money they have and invest outside without question. And they're like everybody else. I mean, the regular folks are just like us here, you know, and just want to do good for themselves and their families and whatnot and seek opportunity that's stable. But So yeah, we have partners in Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen. We'll be going there in a couple of weeks, to visit KE Holdings. I work for a company called Linjia, which is the largest real estate company in China. Has 9,000 offices, 200,000 agents. So I ran their U.S. operation. So a lot of good contacts there, and a lot of friends. So I haven't been there since 2019, right before COVID. So we used to go there 3 or 4 times a year. But yeah, so we really look forward to plugging back in. I also run, and because of that, a global real estate marketplace. So everybody sort of wants to plug into China. So now we have partners where you can showcase your properties, network, et cetera, in all kinds of places around the world, from Dubai to Philippines, Singapore, Costa Rica, Ecuador. We just did a pilot program with eXp Realty, approved by Glenn Sanford himself in 4 of their countries. So really trying to showcase our global reach. So anyone on this call, if you want to try to connect online, offline, anywhere and where we're at, reach out, and love to keep growing and sharing our network. So, and really with Jim and Evan, so great, really spearheading that here locally. So I'll put my contact information in the chat, but free to answer any questions anyone would have as well.
And this is the exciting thing, right? All of us here, I know very well, speaking, changing, talking, and all these networks. But with this, it is really massive. And Evan, I know with the FIAPSI, everyone was doing different events around the world, but it is excited, to go to Africa for a lot of the opportunities, like you said. So, we're all talking about with the tariffs, things there could be with currency exchanges as one, right? Tariffs, what opportunities do you see like around the world, and why would you say now in Africa also huge opportunities that will be coming?
Well, I think Luis made an excellent point earlier, just talking about sort of, I don't know if we should call it chaos, but the things that are happening in the United States under the new administration. It seems to me that a lot of people, they're sort of adopting the perspective that it's hard to know exactly how much of it is negotiation, how much is it just bluster, and how much of it is authentic. But it is sort of, what I'm finding is that it is making some international investors hesitant about investing in development projects or commercial real estate investment projects in the United States currently. So as a matter of fact, and you mentioned this earlier, Jim, I didn't follow up on it, I apologize, but you mentioned that I also, in addition to being president of the USA chapter of FIAPSI, I also serve at the international level on the World Council of Developers and Investors, which is a committee with seats being taken by members, a handful of members from all around the world, chapters from all around the world. But basically, we just try and facilitate exchange of information for developers and investors in all of our chapters. As I said, with 45 chapters around the world in 80 different countries. But as part of what we're doing there, I was actually just talking to a developer here in the United States just yesterday. So he and his group, they've got a development in the planning stages in South Florida, which is just massive. It's on the scale of Nusantara in Indonesia, or Neom in Saudi Arabia, a city scale development project. But what's unique about his is that instead of a smart city, they're calling it a cognitive city. They're using AI to basically control everything in the city. So it's in the planning stages, and as some of the technology to accomplish what they're trying to do doesn't yet exist. So it's all sort of playing out in real time. But what he was telling me is that they had built up a great deal of momentum within the past couple of years, attracting international investors, but they've seen that some of those, and we're talking about institutional investors, sovereign wealth funds and whatnot from around the world, they've sort of put a pause on their enthusiasm. And they're thinking, okay, now it's going to take a little bit longer to raise the funding that they need for this project. So with that in mind, it does sort of open up the opportunity for some other countries to sort of step into that space. And I think Africa is an excellent example, like Doug was saying. Going into the future, there's just so much potential there, with growing economies and, just so much available land, I suppose, even in that regard. I see that as someplace to keep an eye on and maybe start thinking about investing in projects there. But even I was just in Spain. So just a few months ago, we had an international event in Barcelona. And part of that event was property tours. They were taking us around to look at some commercial real estate projects that have been developed in just the past few years. Very impressive projects. I mean, things of that nature. So, I mean, there are so many opportunities out there. It's mainly just making the connections. That's what I found. It's fine to, to go to the internet and Google how do I develop a project in Nigeria. But how far is that going to get you? But if you join an organization of one sort or the other where you can make those connections with real people, I think that's 9/10 of the battle right there. If you've got those connections and you've got the enthusiasm, the ambition to make something happen, you can follow through on it, and in all likelihood, you can bring it to fruition. It will actually happen. But I guess that would be my advice. Whatever it happens to be, whatever organization it is, look for those international connections, and then let that guide your understanding of what opportunities are out there.
Thank you. And kind of going to Doug. Doug, you started this global network where you were, I remember, traveling, for Chamber of Commerce, and then you're like, why don't we set something bigger? And your fruition of Global Chamber came to be. And I'm glad, because by just plugging in, I would say during our pre-COVID the network that I plugged in with yours is just insurmountable. And really the quality of, I would say, government officials that I've met. So can you share a little, how could people that are interested in global business plug into Global Chamber? Because it really is so massive with over 100,000 people, members. It really is overwhelming.
Yeah, the point you make and the point that Evan makes as well is so important, that if you're looking to grow your business, to reach out to trusted people. And the Googling idea, right, Evan, is like, good luck with that. LinkedIn helps a lot, but we've already built now that network out. It actually, Jim, was a failed conversation I had with the World Trade Center in San Diego as I retired from the DuPont company. I thought there should be more success internationally by people, and that the World Trade Center could be the secret because they were in 200 some odd cities, and I thought they could be a facilitator of connections around the world. But what I found out in that frustrating conversation was that it's largely a real estate business to put their name on a building. That's how they make their money. And they don't do a lot of activity or focus in on making connections. There's a couple dozen of their offices that are pretty good at that locally, but they're not built to make the connections to other places. So like when Jim was going to South Korea one time, connecting you to Dr. Wonsak Peter Yun, Einstein Yun, as he may have explained, and how that all came about, that's a real connection to somebody that's like unbelievable. So, and he doesn't want to be just connected to anybody. He wants to be connected to amazing people like you, because when amazing people get together and they're knowing and trusting each other, fun things happen. And so that's been my inspiration for the last 10 years. After I realized the World Trade Center wasn't going to do it, on my long drive back from Orange County to Phoenix, where I was living at the time, I thought some crazy person needs to do this. And so I was the crazy one, this German, Polish, Californian who now in LA, mostly, our headquarters is in Phoenix, believing and seeing every day how connections change people's lives, not just from a prosperity standpoint, but an impact standpoint, that these projects are not just necessarily putting a building in or, an exchange, a transactional exchange. It's making a difference in the world. The world is a crazy place. There are not good things happening failures at a political level on a monumental scale. And so it's more important than ever that we as decent people stand up and treat each other decently and with respect, and use that as a model through our business dealings to guide, hopefully, some crazy people that are not just in the United States but around the world to be better to each other and to create a better world. And I think we have the ability to do that. We are doing that through all of our work. When there are trade happens between borders and at borders, fewer soldiers are required. And so let's continue the progress. And Jim, that's why I'm so respectful of what you've been able to accomplish and all through all of your hard work. And, I'm a big fan. I just love what you're doing.
Thank you, Doug. I'd like to open some questions now from anyone here, because as you can see, this network, and it's really the relationships, leveraging and speaking nonstop to people. We're on calls around the world pretty much. And that's how you do it. But you got to plug in. And I love that you say it's trust, it's friendship, it's breaking bread, it's sharing a meal together. And it is, as you build your LinkedIn, which we all love, your credentials, because there is a point where they like you, but you need to, if you want to meet some people, you got to kind of build your resume up. But the good thing is by showing up, and Doug showing up to your event and also FIOPSI's event and just different events, you get a different relationship. Even if you may not be on par with the speaker or the keynote, you get to know them, you build a relationship on LinkedIn. And then when you see them again, that's how it happens. That of how you grow real relationships, as many people have. And I know, Luis, you from Global Chamber, you saw me at SIOR. So, things like that, and different friends that we meet through different ways. But it does take that, building this friendship, being on Zooms, reaching out before you actually meet sometimes. Love to open it up to anyone that has any global burning questions, or just how to plug in, how to get involved, because each one with Evan and with Doug runs very large networks. I'll tell you, I definitely endorse both of them, been a part of both, still a part of both, and it's extremely powerful. Any questions from anyone? Come on, global questions. Matt?
Jim, I want to applaud the effort of what's taken place here today. And I think it was Anthology that's going to be having the event here in Atlanta. I'll be looking forward to being able to participate in that. But if they could also just post, I know this is being recorded and I'm sitting in an automobile with somebody, but if they could post maybe where their websites are and other events they're going to be participating in, I think that'd be helpful for all of us to see where their events are so that we could participate.
Thank you, Eric. Evan, if you don't mind, because I know part of that, Eric Clark with many are part of CCC, and this is a large organization with services and connections, and we hope to help them connect around the world. So, there's plenty for everyone to plug in and share, right? Because with good people, we just want to make find other good friends, great leaders that we can plug into. Eric, thank you for that. Evan, if you don't mind putting that out. Matt, were you going to say something?
I'm just curious, are there any, and I got the tail end, I apologize, any countries people here in this group would like to connect with, just generally? I'm just kind of curious what the trend is. What, everyone has a different kind of background. I mean, any part of the world specifically, whether it be China or Asia or Europe or just India, Dubai, or US.
So I'll say from Global Chamber perspective, we're everywhere, and it's. I had a fun conversation yesterday with a new member who he was flying to Kazakhstan from Russia. So a few years ago, Jim, we were all set to get, right before the Ukraine war, all set to set up in 17 cities in Russia. And then the war started. And it's like, oh my God. So, and the lady who was orchestrating all of that for us left Russia. Then her family followed. And she actually became an amazing tech leader in San Francisco. So we helped her set up in the US and get her immigration papers and all that. She ended up in Miami first, and now she's in San Francisco. I'm happy to get you connected to her. She's unbelievable. She's amazing. But this conversation with this new member in Russia and the opportunities in places like Uzbekistan and the different and Kazakhstan and the Balkans and some of the things that are going on, it's really exciting. Most of the activity right now is in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. There's a lot going on across Asia. There's certainly lots and lots of things going on in Africa. It's just at a different kind of scale, and it's a more long term, and the money itself has to come in from outside. But in final statement around these opportunities, I also was on a call with our new person in Shanghai, and Jim, through our board, Catherine Liu, you met her the other day or a couple of weeks ago when we're also setting up the chapter in Shanghai, not with Catherine, but a fellow named William Zhu. And he's very involved in the solar industry and more holistically in China and the manufacturing industry there. And as many of us know, there's an oversupply of product in China, and they're looking to get that product out of China. And certainly one of the targets there is Africa. And so they want to sell to Africa. They want to sell to the Middle East. Hard to find markets in the US right now for them, but they're very actively, and they will be very active this year in getting their products sold out. So it all is creating opportunity. So maybe longer than you wanted to hear, but certainly there's so much opportunity going on right now. It's really exciting. And that carries over to real estate, where people need, places to both manufacture, but also have offices.
Well, just a quick thing before I let Caesar speak. I had a request from Canada for a warehouse to be bought in the Washington area. Evan, maybe we work on this too, because
Absolutely.
they're looking at a warehouse because they want to onshore. Caesar, you have a question?
I wanted to answer to Matt. I posted on the chat. I work and live on the south border, Texas south border. And of course, the main objective is Mexico because of the proximity. But all those companies are digging into Latin American countries. Mexico is a factor, number one, because the proximity, the freight is less expensive and fast, but also the labor. The labor is less expensive. But you can see in the chat all the countries that are already here. Of course, we focus on China is the main attraction, but it's a small community and you can hear many different languages when you go out to a restaurant. I'm representing 4 counties all together who made a marketing front in order to, instead of promoting small cities, they're promoting the region, and it's working. So Matt, to answer your question, number one is China, but you can see in the map all the different countries. We have Korea, we have Japan from Asia, but we have Europe and we have Canada. Too many countries.
Caesar, I'd love to connect with you offline and discuss more of the China side for sure.
Of course, definitely, Matt.
I mean, this is the exciting thing when we have discussion globally with leaders and people that have been around the world. You find opportunities, you find these connections to do business. And I do stress to be part of FIOPSI, be part of Global Chamber. Please, Evan and Doug, put your information again, because I know you're going to get a couple members here, because this is the most active, group of everyone talking about it, and it is plugging in. I've made some great connections through this and some great business. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, Jim, even our partner in Singapore, they have this really cool, I know in Beijing with KE Holdings, AI applications that they want to try to get out there in the world. That's kind of cutting edge. So I'm going to this property portal conference in Bangkok in 2 weeks. And you meet all these prop tech real estate leaders from around the world, which is really cool. And they all talk now, of course, about AI. But you also get this context of their business. I met a gentleman who runs the largest portal in Zimbabwe, and he was just discussing how people literally show up to the closing tables with bags of cash to close still. And it's just interesting just to get the different context and how the world is so much smaller when how we're all really connected and all, it's really, fascinating that so much opportunity everywhere, that's for sure.
Well, that's the fun thing that I'm going to be speaking in Atlanta, or sorry, not Atlanta, but Tampa for CCIM, talking about global business and some of these nuances that you find it kind of strange, bringing a bag of cash or doing different nuances, right, and different behaviors. So I would say Evan and then Doug and others, but what do you see culturally you need to do? Because as Americans, let's say a majority, how do you react culturally to different groups that you've seen? Because I know you don't want to be misinterpreted as rude or pushy or aggressive. So Evan, what have you seen kind of doing business globally, culturally as US?
Well, that's just it, isn't it? I think Matt makes an excellent point. You're bringing up a story like that. You just have to be open-minded. Even if somebody shows up with cash, don't fall off your chair. Maybe that's the way they do business. Just be willing to again, just be open-minded and accept that maybe people are going to be doing things in a different way. And of course, I don't think there's anybody in the world who can be an expert on all the nuances of every single culture in the world, around the world. But just the best you can, just try and be polite, open to what's happening, respond with kindness. A smile goes a long way, actually, what I found, especially if there's a communication difficulty because of language, difference in languages and whatnot. Just being friendly and smiling goes a long way in helping to make, to get the connection started at least. It's not going to win a deal for you, but at least it helps to facilitate the conversation that's maybe lacking in other ways.
And Doug, because you're having these conversations.
Yeah, asking questions, and being respectful and humble is always very thoughtful. My early career was with DuPont, and I was too young. They actually didn't even want me. They argued against me being the person in Asia for DuPont, and my boss, who was a Hispanic woman, and her boss, an African-American woman, argued for me that I was not too young. Even though I was young, I would be able to handle the job. And I was hopefully able to handle that because I think I was an engineer and I asked a lot of questions. And so when I'd show up in Daegu, Korea, solving some problems, or at least in a meeting, I tried to solve problems. And I ultimately, in those early days, in 1988, I was 27 years old, I was invited onto the floor of Hyundai Motor Company in Ulsan to solve some quality problem they were having. Can you imagine that, happening today at Hyundai? That would be impossible. But I had set myself up to be able to even be in that position by just listening to people and asking questions and showing some reasonable amount of respect, for them. And that is just so critical when doing business internationally. Really great question.
I love that. So I hope everyone, as you plug in, understand to be open-minded, being respectful. And you're right. I was going to put that in my speech, smile, because a lot of times your body language, even though you may not be able to communicate, they can sense it, they can see it, whether you're genuine, whether you're caring, whether you're empathetic, do you care, right? And if you have that, they'll be more accepting for, missteps or things that you may not do quite right, but they will try to help you as long as they know you're a good person. And I think everyone wants to work with other good people, trusted people around the world. Any final questions before I kind of give a final word to Evan and Doug? Evan, any advice for anyone that wants to be international or global?
Well, only just to reiterate what I was saying earlier, it's really about making those connections, getting out there and being proactive. I mean, I think unfortunately, what sometimes happens is that people will join an organization and they assume that the deals are going to fall into their lap. And that's not really the way it works. Unless you're just, 1 in 100, you're that lucky. But join an organization, become involved, go to the events, but take it a step further. If they have committees, join a committee so you can work with people and get a feel for who they are and their character and how they conduct themselves, things like that. And I think you mentioned it earlier, Jim. You really just have to show up. You have to really proactively put forth the effort to be involved. so that people, when they meet you at an event, they know who you are. If they've never met you, then in all likelihood they're going to forget you just as soon as you walk away. But if you've made that connection, then it just grows and grows from there.
Thank you, Evan. Doug?
One of the, I think maybe being an older fellow, one of the things that I wanted to recognize is that I did a lot of networking in my life. And I'm pretty good at it, and I was for decades. But at some point, I switched over to saying, I'm happy to do networking, but I'm at the stage where I don't want to network so much. I want to be strategically connected in a way within a trusted community to be able to accelerate the productivity on seeing deals, having a choice in the deals, and then working with people that I know and trust. And so that's why I designed Global Chamber the way it is, to be everywhere, to be able to give visibility of lots and lots of deals. And then when I introduce, or one of our team members introduce one of our members to another, they know that it's a soft landing. They know that the person's been vetted. They know that they don't have to start from scratch to figure out, is this person that I can trust? Is this person in Nigeria someone that I know and trust? But at Global Chamber, when we introduce you to someone in Nigeria, like Nihi or one of our other team members there, TT and others, those are people that we've been working with, that we know and trust. And so I would say I feel not great about myself in the sense that I know I've known Evan and Matt, and I think I even got introduced to Ellen in previous times, and we just haven't kind of taken it to the next level. So I'll reach out to all of you. I've written down several of your other names as well. I do know Luis Miranda. I think he's a member of Global Chamber. He's amazing, and he does some great work. But I probably should have done that with all of you more assertively. So I'll do that in the next few days, and look forward to finding ways to leverage this amazing man, Jim, who we all know, and the work that he's doing, so that we can support him and support each other.
Doug, thank you. Evan, Doug, Ellen, from different groups, from FIOPSI, Global Chamber, and also Renaissance Group. We're all working together. As you can see, it doesn't mean that each group is against each other, but this collaboration, cooperation, and leveraging relationship, friendships, everyone does something different, but it is plugging in, getting to know people. It takes time. Don't expect to, like Evan said, plug in to get business right away. And the best thing is you get friendships around the world. I know because of this, I can go anywhere around the world, plug in, and I have a place to stay if I needed to, somebody to show me around, or at least a bite to eat. So with that alone, is priceless. So everyone, have a great day. Join us every Wednesday. Plug in globally, get to know people around the world. And boy, let's try some different food and relationship and music. And, I always say there's always alcohol all around the world that you could try and different stuff. So everyone have a great day, and please connect with each other and be safe. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jim. Take care.
Hey, thank you so much.